Meet Reed Lance Rosenthal, rancher, #1 best-selling award-winning author, and unabashedly, unapologetically on the right side of the outstanding issues of our generation. But don't try to fence him in. Sometimes his positions will surprise you, because Reed is definitely his own man, with his own opinions. You might love him, you might hate him, but you won't be able to stop listening. Step over to the right side with Reed.
Howdy, listeners and viewers, coast to coast, the Gulf to Canada, and around the globe. Reed Lance Rosenthal on the Right Side Radio and the Cowboys Take. And on all sorts of video channels, everywhere, hither, yither, and yon. Please hit the like, hit the subscribe, pass the link on to your friends, and help me spread the word as I try and do every week. Except for the last 10 or 12 days, I have not had a show. In fact, it's the first week and a half or so I have not had a show in 12 years. The reason is threefold. Number one, I've been on the road, book signing at the National Finals Rodeo in Las Vegas. We'll talk about the books here in just a little bit, because I know many of you are waiting for 5 and 6. And number two, because I'm a technological dinosaur, and I speak to you from Jurassic Park, we couldn't get the sound right. Sound sucked. It was terrible. And those of you who listen to me all the time know that when I'm on the road, sound has been, up to now, not so great. You'll notice I'm wearing my little earmuffs. I hate earmuffs. I hate this stuff. I really do. But there seems to be no alternative if I'm going to bring you a decent audio clarity. So here I am. And obviously, this contraption won't fit over the broad-brimmed hat, so I have to wear a ball cap type style hat. And sorry about the Merc thing here. No, I'm not a disciple of Big Pharma, but it was really the only ball cap I had. So, with all that said, let's catch up on what I didn't get to tell you here over the last week. And actually, there's been a lot of breaking news, particularly international. So this show is going to focus on what's going on internationally. There's going to be some domestic rat-a-tat-tat. There's been some great court decisions. The Biden administration, Obama's third term, is doing everything it can to lay landmines in the path of the incoming Trump administration, despite them promising a smooth transition. Yeah, we believe that, right? I think, didn't Obama promise that in 2016, and then we had Russiagate, we had impeachment, and we had Ukraine, we had all that nonsense. Well, listen, leopard never changes its spots, and as the frog and the scorpion story goes, it's because it's their nature. They really can't help themselves. They're corrupt, they're communist, winner take all, bring a gun to a knife fight, and let us trample upon the people and the Constitution whenever we can, because the pesky Constitution and faith and freedom and individual self-determination and self-reliance is the antithesis to what these folks believe. Because in the end, they're concerned with them. They're concerned with their power. They're concerned with their money. In fact, our founder's quote today is a perfect summation of the information I'm going to bring you. I want you to remember, as we're going through the international stuff, which, by the way, none of the mainstream media is covering, even though it is really important. I mean, this is not little stuff that's going on around the globe. This is big stuff. Any of it could deteriorate into, shall we say, a very unfortunate confrontation between the superpowers. So, let's get started. Number one, our founder's quote. I think you'll see that it ties in beautifully with the show I'm bringing you. And the reasons that we're having our, shall we say, international trials and travails right now. And this happens to be Sam Adams. Quote, "If ye love wealth better than liberty, the tranquility of servitude better than the animating contest of freedom. Go home from us in peace. We ask not your counsel or your arms. Crouch down and lick the hands that feed you. May your chains set lightly upon you, and may posterity forget that you were ever our countrymen. Unquote. Amen. I love it. You bet. Folks, you guys out over on the left, you weenies from Hollywood, you Barack Obama communist disciples, the useful idiots that follow the mind-numbing treason of the left right now, please do. Leave. Get out of here. Go to Europe. Go to South America. Go to Asia. Go to Russia. Go to communist China. I don't care. Beat it. Scram. Who cares? Don't need you. Don't want you. All right. Enough of that rant. South Korea. This actually started, I'll tell you what, let me back up. Let me give you the ranch story, okay? We almost forgot that in our haste to bring you the news today after this 10-day hiatus. So I've been on the road. I'll be back at the ranch here about the time most of you will be viewing or listening to the show or the podcast on the rightsideradio.com if you just want to listen to the podcast anytime you wish, which, by the way, has a fabulous archive. I mean, it goes back 10 years, literally any topic you can think of. The history of money, the history of banking, the history of Federal Reserve, the history of civilizations, the rise and fall of civilizations, you name it, okay? And some great mini biographies on some of the known names of our time, JFK, FDR, et cetera, et cetera. And my last two shows, I brought you information on the presidents. I chose 7 of them, going back to George Washington, who took office in a time of much upheaval, much danger, and a splintered America. And what they did to try and put it back together. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall, right? Hopefully that gave you some insight into what Trump might do and what he might not do. But anyway, I've been on the road, and I've been talking to my ranch lieutenant who's been taking care of the place. He's in command while I'm gone, obviously. And things have been going, as far as I know, as far as I'm told, very smoothly. So, like who needs me? Right? Okay. The elk hunters that were in, they filled their tags. I didn't have to point out anything, tell them where to go, or any such nonsense. The winter cows that are in are seemingly content, growing fatter by the day. The horses are frolicking in the pastures, and all seems right with the planet and the ranch. So, the moral of this story is sometimes the head cheese needs to get out of the refrigerator and let the rest of the food chill without him. How's that? All right, let's talk about international because I mean, there's a spate of international news. Nobody's bringing it to you. I mean, it's really friggin' unbelievable. And we're going to be talking a little bit about this drone nonsense in New Jersey and New York also. So, South Korea. About a week ago, the South Korean president, supposedly an ally of the current administration, declared martial law and enlisted the military to tamp down demonstrations and protests which were occurring in the streets of South Korea, all to the delight of the North Koreans, I might add. And it seems that he is, shall we say, under investigation for all sorts of illicit and criminal activities. We shall see what happens there. But the fact that South Korea, which is the first line of defense against North Korea, is upside down, topsy-turvy, adds to the degree of chaos that we see basically bubbling to the surface all around the planet in this hiatus of leadership. We have about 50 days to go till Trump is inaugurated and can actually, no pun intended, pull the trigger and get things done. In the meantime, you have a lame duck, dementia-ridden so-called president who is being manipulated and puppeteered by Barry Obama, Soros, and the rest of the crew who are very unhappy that they don't have their fourth term in office to kind of finish the job that they started, the fundamental transformation of the United States of America. So South Korea is a flashpoint right now. And then we have Syria. Some of you may have heard about this. Hopefully you did somewhere. But Syria has basically disintegrated. Assad, the president that Barry Obama was trying to get out of office forever, and that Biden was trying to get out of office forever, and a big ally of Russia and Iran, is no more. Poof. In fact, he has taken up asylum in Russia and plans to go back into medicine practice. He's a doctor, believe it or not. Rather interesting. So this vacuum, this power vacuum, has been filled by, hold on to your bippy, Al Qaeda. Where did they get the money and the weapons? Al Qaeda and ISIS. Where did they get the money and the weapons to literally, in a matter of days, overthrow the Syrian government? And this all started in Aleppo, which fell in like 24 to 48 hours. Well, I think we all know where they got it. Now, on one hand, this is kind of a brilliant move because it separates Syria, Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis, all of whom are the proxies of Iran. And Hezbollah has been hammered by Israel, never mind what the mainstream media tells you. Hezbollah has been hammered by Israel. They were unable to come to the assistance of Assad, which they did, shall we say, in his previous almost teeter-totter. What was this, 10 years ago or so, during Barry Obama's reign of power. And Syria is no more. Now we have, apparently, Al Qaeda running the country. Well, what could go wrong there? In the meantime, Israel is advancing tank columns into Syria. You wonder about whether this was all planned or not, or if this is just the way some coincidental dominoes fell, huh? And Syria, if you look at a map of the Mideast, is a much more direct shot to Iran, whether you are flying warplanes or whether you are on the ground, than any other route. And you can mostly avoid Iraqi airspace. The Iraqis have made it known they don't really welcome the Israeli Air Force flying over their cities or invading their airspace. So this is all very curious, is it not? And that ceasefire, supposed, that's pretty much crumbled already, that was announced between Israel and Hezbollah about a week and a half ago. Well, that seems to have gone by the wayside now. And the fact that you had that ceasefire and then you had Al Qaeda armed, equipped, and controlled by the United States, wow, think about that. This is like Benghazi on steroids. And then suddenly Israel's advancing tank columns in after Assad has fallen. It's all very curious. Why don't we just say it's all very curious? Now, the good thing is that Russia has lost a huge sphere of influence along with Iran. In fact, as of this broadcast, Russia is evacuating its armed forces from Syria. So there's a lot of things going on over there in the Mideast. And if you think this fight between Hezbollah and Israel is over, well, I'll sell you some swampland in the Sinai Desert. How's that? You bet. And if you think Hamas is not going to be pricked by Israel here in the future, well, I think you're just flat wrong. The only big question over there is Iran going to attack Israel, or is Israel going to attack Iran? And then, of course, that brings in China, because China, the second largest consumption machine of oil, fossil fuels in the world behind the United States, gets much of its oil from Iran. So the national interests of the Chinese will be threatened by all this. This is all very interesting. It's all very dicey, and we shall see how it plays out. Oh, Russia. In the course of all this, Russia is, shall we say, not pleased, to put it mildly. Russia is also bogged down in Ukraine. However, Russia has withdrawn its ambassador to the United States. This actually happened several months ago. They've been promising to replace that ambassador, but somehow they just haven't gotten around to it. I wonder what all that means. And did you know that the United States government over the last week has been trying to procure hundreds of thousands, millions of doses of potassium thyroid medicine, potassium iodide medicine for thyroid, which has to do with nuclear attack. Kind of interesting, which ties into a side story, although mostly domestic, and that is all these drones that everybody's getting all hot and clammy, hot and sweaty, hot and bothered about flying into New Jersey and New York. Now, the word from the Pentagon and the word from the three-letter agencies, who of course we can trust, right? They would never, ever, 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 ever tell us a fib, would they? Is that these drones are coming from an Iranian mothership out in the Atlantic off the U.S. coast. But in fact, and I want you to think about this very seriously, particularly people back in the Northeast that listen to me. These drones, when you see pictures of them, and when you read up on them, and when you see what kind of equipment they are, should we say, endowed with, my opinion is that these drones are nuclear sniffer drones. In other words, drones which are trying to seek and find possible dirty bombs. Now, with 10 million people having crossed the southern border and all sorts of fissionable material missing over the years, I mean, what could go wrong there? And why would the government be flying nuclear sniffing drones over New Jersey and New York right now? And then, I don't want to say lying about it because, you know, our government would never lie to us folks. But shall we say, concocting a story that has deniable culpability built into it. So my opinion is, after researching it, we shall see. Time tells all tales that these drones in New Jersey and New York that everybody is all hot and bothered about, and that everybody is blaming some foreign power on, or if you're a kind of a whackball, the UFO theory on, has nothing to do with that. I think it is United States military or three-letter agency drones trying to sniff out the potential of a dirty bomb. And particularly between now and the inauguration, wouldn't that be handy for the third term Obama administration? Yeah, think about all that, if you would. All right, let's get back to the international. So China, while all this is going on, China has 90 naval vessels literally in Taiwanese waters. Okay, this is the largest military, shall we say, escapade by China relative to Taiwan since 1996, which, folks, is close to about 30 years ago, which in the quickening of history time that we live in, a very long time. So we'll see what bubbles to the surface over there in China and Taiwan and the South China Sea. And then we have the color revolution in Georgia. Did you know about this? Oh, I bet you didn't. So Georgia is kind of a Russian satellite. And all of a sudden, and supposedly relatively democratic, all of a sudden there's a revolution in Georgia. Kind of simultaneous with Russia getting its butt kicked and butt out of Syria and other things not going really well for the Russians in the Ukraine war, although they are winning it. Don't you doubt it. Now we have the Russians um, kind of looking over at their little neighbor Georgia and going, "What the hell's going on here?" And a color revolution, for those of you who have forgotten, is a revolution which is inspired by, oh yes, the CIA, the FBI, the DNA, and the other three-letter alphabet agencies of the United States. In fact, the color revolution, a color revolution, is what threw out the pro-Russian premier/president of Ukraine in 2014 and replaced him with a Western puppet. You see how all this works. So now we have this bubbling to the surface in Georgia, right on Russia's border. Must be a coincidence. What do you think? Then we have, let's talk about some domestic stuff, okay? Because there's international stuff. We go on and on and on. There's all sorts of upheavals in South America. I'm going to bring you more on that next week. But why don't we say the world is in a tizzy, shall we? And nobody seems to be bringing you news. And all this news could affect, well, never mind your liberty, never mind your property, never mind your family's financial stability, but how about your life, whether you breathe or whether you don't? So I think it's rather important, don't you? The FEMA scandal. When FEMA didn't bring aid to the red counties of North Carolina, Georgia, and Tennessee back there 6, 8 weeks ago in that big hurricane deal, Hurricane Helene, well, it's gotten worse. Now there are actual audio leaks. There's several canaries that are singing from FEMA that they were ordered to not, if there was a Trump sign in the yard of somebody who needed aid, they were ordered not to aid them. Think about that. This is your United States taxpayer dollars at work. And the FEMA scandal is getting worse. I'm going to bring you more on that next week. But this is an agency which, unfortunately, like most of the other agencies in the federal government, is corrupt to the core, ideological to the max, and completely un-American. And then we have Director Wray of the FBI. I mean, I've warned you about this guy from the beginning. Why Trump ever appointed him, I have no idea. But Director Wray has resigned, except his resignation is not effective until Inauguration Day, which gives him 6, 7 weeks to drum up all sorts of mischief and plant all sorts of landmines at the FBI for the incoming director, which we hope will be Kash Patel if he gets confirmed, and for the incoming administration. Because, they promise a smooth transition. So that, of course, is what they're working very, very hard on. That is their first concern, ladies and gentlemen. A smooth transition to benefit you and I. Absolutely. And, okay, there's more news coming out on the Trump assassination attempts. First of all, the news on the first assassination attempt in Butler is that one of the Secret Service agencies, and it's still foggy bottom, we can't get information, has been severely reprimanded and perhaps fired for their conduct, or a lack thereof, on the day of the attempted assassination of Trump in Butler. But it gets better, as it always does, right? So the second assassination attempt, where this maniac flew all the way from Hawaii on 4 planes, on the watch list, never stopped, never frisked, never whatever. He lay in wait for Trump on this golf course for 12 hours in the bushes along, I think, the sixth or seventh hole, somewhere in there. Well, it turns out that he had 18 cell phones. 18, not 1.8, not one, not eight, 18 cell phones. But it gets better because one of the cell phones is missing. Hmm. Now, who is in charge of this? Oh, you mean the FBI and the Secret Service? Wow, how convenient is that? Just like us not getting information still to this day on the Butler rigged assassination attempt, the second JFK little playlet, which didn't play quite the way they wanted to in this last 100 years. So the decision, this is really interesting. And by the way, once again, all these articles are posted on the website, on the rightsideradio.com. You can read the details to your heart's content. It seems that they did not make the decision as to what course they were going to play on, Trump and people playing with him, until 2 a.m. in the morning, the day before all this came down several weeks ago. 2 a.m. in the morning. Now, how would this guy have known when there were a number of golf courses to pick from? How would he have known to lay in the bushes on this course at that point for 12 hours waiting for Trump? It's an interesting rhetorical question, isn't it? But it gets better because it seems that the Secret Service did not sweep the golf course. That's right. They didn't check it out one iota prior to Trump arriving and starting to play golf. But it gets better than that. It seems that a Secret Service runs onto the would-be assassin in the bushes. He fires not once, not twice, not 3 times, but 5 times at the perp from 6 feet away. 6 feet. Look across the table you're sitting at right now. That's around 6 feet, give or take. He misses all 5 shots. Now, I could tell you that I could probably give a pistol to my dog and he would hit at least once out of 5 attempts at 6 feet. So what was going on there? Did we have a Secret Service agent that was a DEI hire that had never fired a weapon before? Or do we have a Secret Service agent that, shall we say, didn't want to hit the target? Something to think about, isn't it? This article, by the way, is on the website and under the Trump assassination attempt page. Quite interesting, very interesting. And this missing cell phone, you don't think that would be a government phone, do you? I wonder. I wonder what happened to that 18th phone once the FBI got its hands on. Maybe it suffered the similar fate of Hunter's laptop. That brings us to the pardon by Joe Biden, which he promised never to do, of course, of his son, Hunter. Should I say his scumbag son, Hunter? I mean, his son is, wow. I'll just leave it at that. Wow. Except that this really isn't a pardon of Hunter. Because in the end, I'm not sure Joe and Jill really care about Hunter at all. And I can tell you that the people behind Joe and Jill pulling on the puppet strings really don't care about Hunter. To them, he is simply a boil that needs to be lanced. How's that? So what this really does is it kind of initiates a partial pardon of Biden of himself. Because there's a thing in law called the empty seat defense. You know, if you have somebody who's integral to the case, they're not named to the case, or they're not a witness, or whatever. I'm not trying to be a lawyer here. I'm not a lawyer. Then you have an empty seat defense by the opposing party, which oftentimes, I might add, is successful. And if Hunter Biden has been pardoned, not only for his crimes, folks, but for all other future crimes known and unknown. I want you to think about that. All other crimes known and unknown. Hunter's testimony is probably key to the influence peddling scheme that Joe, the big guy, Biden, had going for many years with Russia and China and Ukraine and the rest of the sordid and corrupt oligarchs around the world. So, how convenient that he has basically carved out the government's top witness and made it impossible for the witness to testify against him or Jill, because Jill, I guarantee, was in the thick of all this. Jill really liked her expensive parties, you know. We're going to revisit that topic too, but it's all quite interesting and ties in with the Ray resignation. All these things are connected, folks. None of this happens on its own. Zero. Nada. All right, so how about the New Jersey drones? You've probably heard about this because the mainstream media is breathless, you know, breathless. What could be going on here? Iranian mothership, UFO characters. Oh my God, here we go. Maybe it's climate change, huh? That's why the drones are flying around. Climate change. I told you what I thought of this. I don't believe these drones are foreign or controlled by a foreign power at all. I believe they are controlled by the three-letter agencies and or the Department of Defense or a combo thereof, that they are nuclear sniffing drones. Because somebody is worried, and you'll have to think about this, that there is either a dirty bomb somewhere in that New Jersey, New York area, or that there's supposed to be a dirty bomb, but it isn't there yet. That should get you thinking with Inauguration Day 6 weeks away. Gotcha. So the name of the drones which do this nuclear sniffing, they're called HPGE, Nuclear Detection Drones. You might want to look that up on DuckDuckGo, because I guess Google is censoring all the articles, because that's what they do, folks. That's what they do. We have 3 special elections, 1 in New York, 2 in Florida. I want to remind you that the House of Representatives, I think our majority right now is 1 or 2 votes. I think it's 1, because 3 congressmen, Gates resigned, Stefanik has been named to a position in the administration, and another congressman has 2. And that means special elections. In Florida 1 and Florida 6 and 1 of the New York districts, which I'll bring to you next week. On the Take Action page, and on the recommended contribution page on therightsideradio.com, you can see several outfits, including the House Republicans, who are drumming up money to go and get these elections won. Because let me tell you, folks, even though it's slimmer than Slimmy Slim Slim, 4 votes more than the Democrats is way better than 1 vote more than Democrats, particularly since the Democrats seem to be cohesive and the Republicans, shall we say, not so much. How's that? Not so much. Spending. Joe Biden, Barack Obama's 3rd term, is absolutely dead set on spending every dime he can before Trump gets to office. In fact, $46 billion to run the executive branch, a lot of it have to do with the White House and entertainment and other things that your tax dollars should not be participating in. The White House staff has been told by Biden and crew to spend it. Right. Remember, this is a new fiscal year for the federal government. The fiscal year runs basically October to October. So they're trying to go out in a blaze of currency degradation glory, because that was really part of the plan to begin with. I'll be keeping you posted on that in the next week also. And on the economic front, final numbers are in. The United States lost 1 million full-time jobs last year. Now, the economy really can't be doing it as well as we're told it's doing, when you lose 1 million full-time jobs. Can't be. And it's really interesting to note that the BLS, Bureau of Yes, or the Department of Labor doing the executive branch's bidding, they said, after two downward adjustments over the last 2 months, by the way, of previously ridiculously high figures, they said that there have been a total of 2.3 million jobs created by our friend President Gaddafi and the cast behind the curtain over the last year. Well, it's kind of funny because the much more reliable household survey, this is where hundreds of thousands of households are contacted to ask about what's happening with their jobs, have they lost them, have they have them, are they nervous about them, etc. The household survey says that no, gain we didn't gain millions of jobs over the last year. We actually lost 700,000 jobs. That's a 3 million job difference, folks. There's never been a spread like that in the history of record keeping of the United States. I think until right back around the Depression, 1929. Never been, okay? So I tend to think that the household survey is the one that you should follow. That's the true, or at least most true statistic, which is 700,000 jobs lost and 1 million on top of that, 1 million full-time jobs lost over the last year, which, by the way, would signify that we are in a recession, even though the R word is really, really, really not liked by Perry in his third term and Gaddafi and the rest of the crew up there in the White House. So, my opinion on all this is that they know what's going down. They have set Trump up to be the fall guy. Don't put anything past the left, folks. They think long term, they think strategically. Unfortunately, they have some brilliant minds like Barry Obama. And there's not much that they would not do or are not capable of doing between now and Inauguration Day. And if the economy craters under Trump, and between you and me, I think it's going to, it doesn't matter who was in office. If the economy craters during Trump, that can do nothing but help the Democrats in the midterms, which are now less than 2 years away. And it can do nothing to instill confidence in the Trump agenda, which, of course, the deep state, three-letter agencies, and the outgoing Democrats, give me a gag. That whole thing is, shall we say, kind of sized up to be not what it's sized up to be. In other words, don't believe your lying ears as you hear the propaganda from mainstream media and the Department of BS there under the administration of Gaddafi and Obama third term, because the economy is really not good. After signing books and talking to, I don't know, several thousand people here over the last 10 days, I can tell you that people know the economy is not that good. They know it. I mean, they're thrilled that Trump's in, absolutely ecstatic about it. They nonetheless know that, shall we say, times that are less than good are on the way. And I think they're going to try and pin the tail on the donkey, so to speak, to set themselves up for 2028 and for the midterm elections, now less than 2 years away. So that's kind of my catch-up report to you. Here again, my apologies for not having a show to you last week. Actually, I really am trying to do two. I apologize for this hard background. The Leafs are on the wall. Not much I can do about that. And I apologize to you for the earmuffs and the ball cap. It is the way it is, folks. Better a show looking like a goof than no show at all. The show must go on. So until we talk again, which should be after I get back to the ranch here in the next day or two, keep the wind at your back because it is very, very windy out there. In fact, gale force warnings, the flags are flying high. Read Lance Rosenthal on the Right Side Radio and the Cowboys Take. Have a great few days till we see each other once again.
Please remember, if you've missed any shows, just click on Show Archive and you'll find all of his shows. We look forward to seeing you here again next week for another episode of Read Lance Rosenthal on the Right Side.